You know that classic trope in horror movies, right? Where the protagonist has finally locked all the doors, they've barricaded the windows.
Oh yeah, they're huddled in the dark thinking they're totally safe.
Exactly. They're breathing heavy, completely convinced they're safe from whatever terrifying thing is hunting them outside. And then, the phone rings.
The worst sound ever.
Right. The police trace the call and they deliver that iconic, chilling line. The call is coming from inside the house.
I mean, it is the ultimate plot twist, the realization that the villain isn't out there. The villain is in here.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring a premise that feels remarkably similar to that movie trope. We're looking at excerpts from a really fascinating piece called The Architecture of Mental Freedom.
Yeah, specifically a section titled, Don't Believe Everything You Think.
Yes, and we're exploring a very provocative question for you today. What if most of your suffering isn't actually coming from your life, but from your thoughts? What if it's not reality that hurts, but the story you just keep repeating in your mind?
It's a massive paradigm-shifting concept when you really internalize it. I mean, we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with information, with demands and external stressors.
Well, totally nonstop.
Right, so we naturally wire our brains to assume our stress and our suffering are caused by those external things, like a bad day at work or a conflict with a friend or, a financial hurdle.
Because those things are real and they happen.
Exactly. But the framework we're unpacking today deconstructs that assumption. It kind of forces us to look at the invisible mental traps we fall into, where our own internal monologue is essentially terrifying us on a loop.
The call is coming from inside the house. Except, in this case, the house is our mind.
That's a perfect way to look at it. And to figure out how to get out of that house, we have to look at the mechanics of the trap itself. We have to understand why it's so easy to fall into and why it happens completely unconsciously.
Right, because nobody actively wants to torture themselves.
No, of course not. But most of us operate in a state where every doubt feels incredibly real and every fear feels like an absolute truth. Every harsh, critical voice in our head feels like it's the core of who we really are.
And that internal monologue can be brutal. I mean, we've all heard these specific narratives in our own heads. Things like, if I fail at this project, it means I'm fundamentally not good enough.
Or, if they didn't text me back, I must have done something wrong.
Yes, or the classic, things are going wrong right now, which means my entire life is falling apart.
Oh, the catastrophizing. We all do it.
We do. And when you say them out loud to another person, they sound like an overreaction. Like, you sound a bit ridiculous. But when they are whispering in your own ear, in your own voice, they sound like cold, hard facts.
Because they bypass our critical filter entirely. And the text really highlights this. This is the tragedy of automatic belief.
Automatic belief.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the trap most people live in isn't necessarily because life itself is unbearably hard. I mean, life obviously has challenges, right?
For sure.
But the real issue, the thing that turns a difficult moment into prolonged, agonizing suffering, is that our thoughts about those challenges are just so loud, and we believe them automatically, reflexively, without a single second of hesitation.
So let's look at the mechanics of that automation. Like, why does the brain do that? It feels like a massive design flaw.
It does feel like a glitch, right? But it's actually an evolutionary survival mechanism working in overdrive.
Really? How so?
Well, the human brain is essentially a calorie-saving prediction machine. It consumes a massive amount of our body's energy.
I think I read somewhere it's like 20% of our energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge energy drain. So it constantly looks for shortcuts to save power. It builds heuristics or, mental shortcuts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So if you encountered a predator in the wild thousands of years ago, your brain didn't want you to sit there and analytically ponder the situation.
Like, I wonder if that tiger is hungry today.
Exactly, you'd be eaten. It needed an automatic, terrifying thought to flood your system with adrenaline so you would run immediately.
Oh, I see.
Fast forward to today, your brain still uses those exact same automatic threat detection shortcuts, but now it's applying them to an unanswered email or a critical comment in a meeting.
So the brain treats social rejection or a minor failure with the same automatic catastrophic alarm bells as a literal tiger attack.
Precisely. And because it's an automatic survival mechanism, we just never question it. We accept the alarm bell as the absolute truth of our reality.
Wow.
So the text argues that the mind becomes a prison not because of the literal walls around us, but because of the rules we've silently agreed to obey without ever looking at the evidence.
I can hear you, the listener, maybe pushing back a little bit right here. Let's really stress test this idea.
Sure, let's do it.
If things actually go wrong in reality, let's say you lose your job, or a long-term relationship ends, or you get a scary medical diagnosis, isn't the suffering completely justified in those cases?
That's a very fair question.
Because those are objectively bad things. How do we separate the real, tangible event of losing a job from the internal story of, my life is ruined?
Yeah.
Because in the moment, they feel completely tangled together in one big knot of misery.
And the text addresses this directly. It is the essential question. It requires us to separate the raw data of an experience from the commentary our brain adds to it.
The raw data versus the commentary. Okay.
Right. The event itself, losing the job, the relationship ending, that is a fact. It happened. It will require difficult logistical changes, it'll be inconvenient, and it will cause genuine emotional and physical pain. That is reality.
Right, we aren't denying that the pain is real.
Exactly. But the subsequent personal judgment we attach to it, the I am a failure, the I will never recover from this, the I am fundamentally unlovable, that is not a fact.
Right, that's the story.
Yes, that is the story. It's a loud, unexamined thought generated by a brain trying to predict the worst case scenario so you can survive it.
So the event is the raw sensory data, and the suffering is the meaning we automatically slap onto that data.
We are constantly reacting to our own commentary about the event, far more than we are reacting to the event itself.
That is so wild to think about.
It really is. And because the commentary is automatic, we think the pain is coming from the lost job. In reality, a huge percentage of the pain is coming from the thought, I am worthless and my future is destroyed.
Okay, so if the automation is the trap, and our brains are biologically wired to create these predictive stories, how do we break the machinery? I mean, you can't just tell your brain to stop generating thoughts.
No, attempting to stop thinking is a losing battle. Anyone who has tried to meditate and just make their mind go blank knows that.
Oh yeah, suddenly you're thinking about your grocery list and that embarrassing thing you said in 2014.
Exactly. The intervention the source material suggests is much more subtle. It's about introducing a moment of profound interruption.
An interruption. Like a distraction.
More like a wedge between you and your mental commentary. It starts with asking a single specific question. What if not everything I think is true?
What if not everything I think is true? I mean, it almost sounds too simple to be effective against a full-blown panic spiral.
I get that, but the power isn't in the complexity of the words. The power is in what the question does to human consciousness.
What do you mean by that?
It physically changes how your brain is operating in that moment. When you are caught in a negative spiral, your limbic system, which is the emotional, reactive part of your brain that's running the show.
Right, the tiger attack mode.
Exactly. Asking that question forces blood flow back into your prefrontal cortex, the logical, observing part of your brain. It marks the exact moment a person stops reacting to their mind and starts observing it.
Reacting versus observing. That actually makes me think of an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Imagine you're sitting in a movie theater. You are watching this incredibly tense, terrifying horror movie. When you are fully immersed, when you are reacting, your heart is pounding, your palms are sweating, you are terrified of the monster on the screen.
Because to your nervous system, the monster is real. You are fused with the experience.
Exactly, you are in the movie.
Your brain cannot tell the difference between the projected image and a real threat in the room.
Right. But then, someone in the row in front of you pulls out their phone and the bright screen catches your eye, or the person next to you drops a giant bucket of popcorn.
Totally ruins the vibe.
It ruins the vibe. But suddenly, the spell is broken. You shift from reacting to observing. You remember, wait, I'm just a person sitting in a slightly sticky chair in a dark room, looking at light projected onto a flat wall.
That's a great way to visualize it.
The monster is still on the screen, the movie is still playing, but you are no longer in danger. You took a step back.
And that moment of remembering you are in the theater, that is exactly what asking, what if not everything I think is true, does. It pulls you out of the immersion of the thought.
It breaks the spell.
Yes. When you are reacting, you are the character in the horror movie running for your life.
Yeah.
When you ask that question, you become the audience member watching the movie.
You realize the thought is just projected light.
Exactly. But to maintain that perspective, to truly observe our thoughts rather than be consumed by them, the text points out that we need a new framework for what a thought actually is.
We have to redefine it.
We have to strip away the authority we usually give them. A thought is just a thought. It is not a fact. It is a mental event.
A mental event. I really like the complete neutrality of that phrase.
It removes the moral weight entirely. There is a classic visualization used in mindfulness practices for decades that the text uses, and it illustrates this perfectly.
What's the visualization?
Think of your mind like the vast open sky. Your thoughts are just clouds passing through that sky.
Oh, I've heard this one.
Right. Some clouds are dark, heavy, and stormy. Some are light and fluffy, but none of them, not a single one of those clouds, is the sky itself.
Let's sit with that sky and clouds metaphor for a second, because the relief in that concept is enormous for the listener.
It really is a game changer.
If you are the sky, the observer, the vast space of awareness, then you are inherently untouched by the weather.
The sky doesn't get damaged by a thunderstorm. It doesn't get stained by a dark cloud. It simply holds the space for the weather to happen, and inevitably, the weather passes.
What's so liberating about that, especially if you're someone who deals with anxiety or a really harsh inner critic, is realizing you don't have to swat the clouds away.
No, not at all.
You don't have to put up massive fans to blow the storm out, and you definitely don't have to try to freeze the sky so it's always sunny. That just takes an exhausting amount of effort.
It's impossible.
Right. You just watch the weather roll in, say, oh, look, a dark cloud of self-doubt, and then watch it roll out.
Because the instinct we all have when dealing with a negative thought is to fight it. We try to argue with the dark cloud. We try to forcefully push it away.
And we want to fix it.
But fighting a thought requires focusing on it, which just reinforces its importance in your brain.
It's like telling yourself not to look at a terrible haircut in the mirror.
Oh, that is exactly what it's like.
If you try really hard to ignore it, your brain has to constantly run a background check. Like, am I looking at the bad haircut? No. Good. Wait, what haircut? Oh, right, the bad one. And your eyes just dart right back to it.
That is the ironic rebound effect of thought suppression. Trying to suppress the thought guarantees you keep thinking about it.
So fighting the thought just gives it more energy.
Exactly. It treats the mental event as if it's a real physical threat that needs to be defeated. The critical shift the author talks about involves understanding the illusion of control.
The illusion of control.
Yes. You do not need to control every thought. You just need to stop giving them power by believing all of them.
Okay, but how do we actively apply this? I mean, it's one thing to calmly say, my thoughts are passing clouds, when you're going for a nice walk listening to a deep dive.
Sure, it's easy when you're calm.
Right. It's a completely different reality when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, and your brain is screaming at you about every mistake you've ever made. What are the actual mechanics of finding freedom in that specific moment?
The mechanics involve a radical change in how you respond to the internal voice. When fear comes, you notice it. When doubt appears, you question it. When negativity speaks, you don't obey it.
You don't obey it. That is an incredibly strong verb to use for a thought. Obeying implies the thought is an authority figure barking orders at you.
Which is exactly how we treat our automatic thoughts. As absolute authorities, we stand at attention and say, yes, sir, I am a failure, sir, I will act accordingly.
Just salute and take the punishment.
Right. Breaking the architecture of mental freedom requires a mutiny against that false authority.
Okay, I want to push back on this idea of not obeying the negative thought, just to make sure we aren't veering into toxic positivity territory here.
Well, that's an important distinction to make.
Because that's where a lot of people get this wrong. If I'm feeling genuine grief or legitimate fear about a real problem, I shouldn't just force a positive thought over it.
No, definitely not.
This isn't about slapping a smiley face sticker over a bullet hole and pretending the dark cloud is actually a rainbow, right? What's the difference between not obeying a negative thought and just repressing reality by forcing a fake positive one?
I'm really glad you brought that up because blurring that line is a massive trap. Toxic positivity is about denial. It's emotional suppression.
Right.
It's looking at a massive thunderstorm and saying, what a beautiful sunny day. Your brain knows you are lying to it.
Right. That just makes it worse.
It does. It creates a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance and internal conflict.
You can't gaslight your own nervous system.
Exactly. The framework we're discussing isn't telling you to think positive thoughts. It is advocating for cognitive diffusion.
Cognitive diffusion.
Getting unstuck from the thought through neutrality. When it says don't obey it, it means don't let the thought dictate your actions or define your core identity.
Okay, so it's not ignoring it.
No. Notice the fear. Acknowledge the dark cloud is there. But don't let the fear make your decisions. Question the doubt, instead of letting the doubt stop you from trying the new thing.
It's about taking your power back from the automatic process, not swapping a negative delusion for a positive delusion.
You nailed it. And the payoff isn't that you're suddenly blissfully happy all the time.
Right.
The payoff is that the noise becomes quieter. The mind becomes clearer. Life feels lighter because you aren't carrying the weight of 1,000 unexamined judgments all day long.
You're just dealing with reality. And dealing with reality, even hard reality, is usually a lot lighter than carrying the catastrophic story we tell ourselves about reality.
Reality is something you can navigate. The catastrophic stories we invent are what paralyze us.
Understanding this conceptually is fantastic. We are the sky, thoughts are clouds, don't blindly obey the dark ones. But what makes this exploration so valuable is that the source provides a direct, highly practical tool to use the very next time the mind tries to build that prison.
Yeah, it moves from philosophical theory right into actionable psychology.
Let's walk through this action step for everyone listening. The next time your mind tells you something heavy, like you're not enough or everyone is judging you, you must do one specific thing before anything else. You must pause.
The pause is arguably the most powerful micro moment in human psychology.
A micro moment. I love that.
Between the stimulus, which is the thought popping into your head, and the response, your emotional and physical reaction to it, there is a fraction of a second. The entire goal of this practice is to expand that fraction of a second.
And in that expanded pause, we deploy the ultimate question.
You ask yourself, clearly and deliberately, is this true or is this just a thought?
Is this true or is this just a thought? It's wild how practical this is. Asking that question is like throwing a wrench into the gears of that automatic threat detection machine.
It really is.
It immediately forces your brain out of the immersive movie theater experience and plants you firmly back in the seat.
Because it demands evidence. The moment you ask, is this true? You are no longer blindly accepting the authority of the narrative. You are cross-examining your own brain.
And the brain hates that.
It does. And overwhelmingly, your brain won't have any actual objective evidence for the cruelty it's throwing at you. It only has old habits, evolutionary negativity biases, and outdated stories.
So you're heading into a meeting, your heart starts racing, your brain says you are completely unprepared, and everyone's going to think you're incompetent.
Right, classic scenario.
You pause. Is this true, or is this just a thought?
It's just a thought. It's a mental event. It's projected light on a screen. You can almost feel the physical tension release from your shoulders when you do that.
You create a buffer zone.
Yeah.
In that buffer zone, you find your agency. You realize you don't have to act on the thought.
You don't have to spiral into a panic.
No, you can just let the thought exist, recognize it as weather, and let it fade away on its own.
So what does this all mean for us as we try to navigate our incredibly loud, demanding lives? If we summarize the ultimate duality here from the source material, it comes down to this. Your mind can either be your prison, or it can be your greatest freedom.
It holds the capacity for both.
Exactly. And the difference between living in the prison or living in freedom doesn't depend on what happens to you in the external world. It simply comes down to a choice. Do you blindly believe everything your mind says, or do you choose what's true?
And it's a daily, sometimes hourly practice. We often look around at other people and assume they have it all together, that they don't have these loud, terrifying internal monologues.
Oh, that's such a common misconception.
Right. But everyone struggles with these invisible mental tracks. Everyone gets locked in the house with the villain sometimes.
It is the universal human condition. We all have a default mode network in our brains. That's the network that takes over when we aren't focused on a specific task.
When we're just idling.
Yes, and that idling engine loves to generate problems to solve. When it doesn't have a real problem in front of it, it invents one about our past or our future.
Just to stay busy.
Exactly. Understanding that we all share this exact same biological mechanism can cultivate a profound amount of self-compassion. And compassion for the people around us, too.
That's a really good point. Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Let's do it.
We've talked a lot about questioning these obvious, loud, negative thoughts like, I am not enough or I am a failure.
But if a thought as heavy and foundational as I am not enough can be investigated, deconstructed, and dismissed as just a passing cloud, it raises an even more profound question.
What's the question?
What other long-standing truths about yourself, about your capabilities, about your limits, or about the way the world works might just be an old, stubborn story you simply forgot to question?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How many of the walls of your current reality are just thoughts you've been practicing for decades?
That is exactly the kind of question that turns the lights on in the movie theater. If the villain was just a story all along, what else is a story? Keep observing those clouds, keep expanding that at pause, and remember, not every thought deserves your belief.